Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Frank Granito in studio today with Eric Gendron directing, Donald Ang and Kevin Coleman here as well. We've got our spring season preview coming up today, gentlemen, and hopefully we're looking at an exciting spring season as we've seen through the fall and winter so far.
Well, listen, I think after what we saw in the fall and winter, spring has a lot to live up to, like we mentioned yesterday, Frank, and I think we're excited to see what these student athletes can bring once we see some warmer weather come into play.
Isn't that something to look forward to, the warmer weather? It's like a couple days ago, I had my windows down. I was listening to preseason baseball on the radio, and then this morning and yesterday now the heat's back on because it was 30 degrees. But yeah, no question at all. This spring season has a lot to look forward to, a lot to live up to coming off the fall and winter seasons that we had, and I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Be nice to be outside again, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of intriguing storylines we're going to be looking into, seeing what teams are going to be strong again, which teams might surprise us this year, and let's just break it all down.
Before we do break that down, we start today's show on a more somber note. One of the brightest stars in the FCIAC from this past winter season of the Fairfield Co-op boys ice hockey team, goalie Charlie Capalbo, a senior at Fairfield Ludlow High School, was recently diagnosed with cancer near his heart and lungs. Due to the cancer's location, an operation is not possible. A Capalbo family friend, John McCormick, has created a GoFundMe page, which you are seeing now, to help cover the cost of medical expenses. Nearly $80,000 was raised in the first day. You're seeing now that number has jumped up as high as $140,000, with the goal set for $195,000. A quote was given saying, "Charlie Capalbo is a close family friend who was just diagnosed with cancer near his heart and lungs. He is a wonderful young man that has just completed a great season as the goalie for the Fairfield, Connecticut high school hockey team. We are raising money to support his family in the time of need. Thank you so much for your support and help spread the word." We got to see Charlie in action over the winter season, and a tremendous athlete, a better young man. It is a very unfortunate story, and it's nice to see the way everyone is rising to support Charlie out, but it's unfortunate that this is the way it has to be right now.
Yeah, it was interesting reading one of the articles. He even told his coach, I didn't realize I had so many people who, cared about me, and I didn't realize I had so many friends. It's great to see the community of Fairfield coming together, and Fairfield County as a whole coming together for a great kid like Charlie. And I think a lot of people are getting behind him, and everyone here at the HN Network has your back, Charlie, and continue to battle this disease, and we know you're going to beat it.
And and it's really it really is heartening to see the way these communities get galvanized. Even the outside communities. In the town where I live, we had an athlete that was diagnosed with a tumor. And you see, even on away games, you see they do the 50-50 collections get donated, things like that. Where we kind of realize that we're rivals on the field, but we're kind of all on the same side when it comes to off the field and health issues like that. So that really is heartening to see the way that these communities can unite. Unfortunately, around a bad cause, but uniting nonetheless.
And you talk about those 50-50 raffles, events we'll see at games. Fairfield Ludlow has come out and they are selling T-shirts now. If you go to booster.com/CharlieStrong, you are able to get a Charlie's Wingman T-shirt. I love that design.
I was just thinking that. It's outstanding.
That's cool.
It's in the Fairfield Ludlow black, blue, and white. Again, Charlie Capalbo has been diagnosed with a cancer near his lungs and heart. It is inoperable, so any way you can support the family, please come out and donate. Buy a T-shirt. They'll be selling them. I believe the game they've selected for this spring season will be against Greenwich. That's their big game where they're trying to do a special night for Charlie. So we will keep you up to date on all that as that story continues along, and we want to wish Charlie the best of luck in his fight. Don, yesterday, Kevin and I did a winter season recap show. We went through all of our favorite highlights, the top plays, top games, top performances. Felt bad you couldn't be here for that one, obviously pulling double duty, editing the Trumbull Times, but I wanted to give you a platform now to talk about some of your favorite memories from this past winter season.
Well, my favorite memory was just how utterly competitive and like down to the wire it seemed like every game came. We talked about during the season. We talked about this, like the inordinate numbers of buzzer beaters and half-court heaves that went in. These last-minute goals in the last minute of overtime in a lot of hockey games, and that to me stuck out more than anything else. Was just how competitive these games were, and the way the athletes always competed down to the wire, like Ridgefield going on their run, where these games were just never over, right down to the last minute. And then if I had to pick one single highlight, I think you know where I would go. What we call the curly kneel, fade away, and then put back. It was in a losing effort, but it was the most remarkable play you'll ever see in competitive basketball. That was just great.
I was JJ Full on that play. It was Eric Gendron's play of the winter, arguably. He absolutely loved that one. I'm glad you mentioned the competitive effort across the board, because you're right. We talked about how fortunate we were with so many great games. Just that competitiveness, though, the drive and all of these athletes we got to see this winter season, we almost took it for granted at times, I think.
Yeah, no question about it, because I mean, no one wants to see a blowout. The athletes don't like. Even if you're on the winning side, it's not really any fun for the winners. It's not fun for us to cover. It's not fun for the team that loses. When you compete, when you cover competitions, that these games that come down to the wire are just an awful lot of fun to participate in and to cover.
The winter season will officially come to an end tonight. The last event on check is going to be the FCAC All-Star Game for boys basketball. It will be at 6 and 7:30 from Staples High School. At 6 o'clock, you will see 17 juniors in action. And then at 7:30, the seniors get to play one final time in one of those FCAC gymnasiums. For the seniors, Coach Buddy Bray of Trumbull will man the Western Division team, and Coach Sheroy Bentley of Darien will lead the Eastern squad. In the junior brackets, Andrew McClellan of the Ridgefield Tigers FCAC Championship squad leads the West, and Joel Gariak of the runner-up Wilton Warriors will lead the East squad. So a little rematch there between McClellan and Gariak in that juniors game. I don't know if it'll be as intense. I doubt we'll see any technicals, but this is a concept, Eric, I think that other sports should really look into adopting. What a great way to end your FCAC careers. No,
absolutely. I mean, just think about the baseball equivalent would be fantastic. I really think every sport should do this. This is a really fun way to kind of cap the season and kind of I think it would kind of creates a lot of conference unity. Kind of brings the whole FCAC together. It's a great idea. I think it definitely should be something that they should consider expanding just beyond basketball.
Any thoughts, Kev?
No, I think, Eric, I think a key word is unity. And I think you're right. You bring a lot of these basketball players together, and it's going to be really competitive. I think about it. You bring together all these all-stars from all these teams. It's going to be a fun game to watch, not only from the junior side, but especially the senior side. And yes, what a great way if you're a senior to end out on a positive note. It's going to be a fun night for these guys. I know they're going to have a blast doing it.
I feel like 1970s Major League All-Star games. Go back to that back to that rough and tumble kind of All-Star game, not like we have today, right?
Should be a lot of fun. Again, those games at Staples High at 6 o'clock and 7:30 tonight. We're going to take our first break on Nutmeg Sports, but when Don, Kevin, Eric, and I get back, we look ahead to the upcoming spring season and who some of our early season favorites will be heading into play. All that next on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
While there's still a bite out on the water, most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
When it comes to considering the outside of your home, just imagine the possibilities. Whether your dream is a stunning freeform pool or a tranquil, secluded garden, the team of professionals at Stonebridge Associates will make it a reality. We offer unparalleled landscape design and construction, masonry development, pools, spas, and water features, as well as landscape and garden maintenance. No other firm can offer the same level of creativity, quality, and personal attention. Discover the possibilities at stonebridgeassociates.net or call 203-544-8376 today.
If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier network, and we've also reached more than 2 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
Back on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network, Frank Granito, Kevin Coleman, Donald Ang, and Eric Gendronall in studio today as we turn our eyes towards the spring season. And we're going to start with softball. The 3-time defending St. Joe's Cadets now in need of a replacement ace as Nicole Williams has left the staff. She is at Manhattan now. Don, obviously this is a huge blow to that Cadets team. How do they go about rebuilding, and what impresses you, or how do you feel about the Cadets heading into the season?
Well, the Cadets, I would leave them as the FCIAC co-favorites along with West Hill. It's kind of like either going to be one or the other is usually the way it works out. The thing is with St. Joe's, the program tends to reload. Now this was not a real senior dominated team last year. There's a fair amount of youth sprinkled throughout the lineup. Obviously, the loss of Williams is a huge factor. And can this be the year that St. Joe's finally gets over the hump to a state championship? I mean, they've been so close the last 2 years, losing a 1-0 game to a Rocky Hill team last year, losing in the finals to Seymour the year before. So it's going to be a really challenging, interesting year for St. Joe's, having to replace an ace and then also try and get to an even higher level than they've been the last couple of years.
And obviously a lot of pressure on the girls. You've won the last 3 championships. They've played in the championship game for the FCIAC 4 years in a row. Only twice since 2000 have they lost the East Division in the regular season, and those 2 years were when Darien won the FCIAC championship. I'll ask you, Eric, do we see some added pressure now on a young Cadets team that's coming in, and if they are able to rebuild again, though, to continue this legacy they've built?
I mean, not too young here. I really still think that, St. Joe's is the favorite to win. Losing Williams is a big blow, but you got to go into the season thinking that the Cadets really are the team to beat still. I do think this is going to be a slightly more even softball conference this year, but, you saw the talent behind Williams last year. She dominated everything just far and away above, but pretty much above everyone else. But we saw St. Joe's several times last season, and really everyone up and down that lineup was really impressive. It's good. They're still going to be a really tough team to beat.
Kevin, the last 2 years in that championship game, that tough team has beaten the Stanford Black Knights. Is Stanford the prohibitive number 2 in the conference right now, or is there someone else you think that could be making a run here?
No, I think it's Stanford, and I actually got a chance to watch them a couple of times last year, and this was a scrappy team. They took a lot of games to extra innings, if you remember, and I think Maddie Santora is the third baseman and captain for the Black Knights. She's someone to look out for. Lauren O'Neill as well. These are some excellent softball players, and it's going to be extra competitive this year. You have Staples as well. New Canaan, they've won an FCIAC championship not too long ago, if you remember, but man, St. Joe's and Stanford right now, to me, I think we can all agree, are 1 and 2.
Yeah, and let's not forget about Fairfield Ward. Had a very good year last year. It's kind of ridiculous almost to think of them as being in the dark horse category. But Ward, the W's, Ward and West Hill, again. Ward actually last year, had a very good year. Ran into a Wilton team that got hot at the right time in the state playoffs. But don't count out the Mustangs.
And talking about the state playoffs, obviously St. Joe's playing in one of the smaller divisions. Don, if there were one of those bigger schools playing in the CIAC who could make a little bit of a run, who do you give the most credit to? Has it got to be Stanford again?
It probably is Stanford. I mean, the problem with Class LL, and it's just a function of the way of the way softball shakes out, is that you have a lot of these FCIAC teams and a lot of the SCC teams that are both in there, and a lot of also the upstate CCC teams like the Southingtons and the Fitches of the world. But the challenge, as always, in the state playoffs, and especially in Class LL, is a lot of these conference powers will cannibalize each other. There's just no way around it when you have a conference like the FCIAC with 10 teams in Class LL. That's just the way it's going to go. But then of course the issue is you run into teams that you've been playing again and again and again all year. Sometimes you're playing them for the fourth time, and that can be especially challenging, especially for a pitcher where everyone has seen all your pitches before.
And of course, the ancient ancestors of Connecticut high school sports decided the FCIAC would get to have lacrosse, and the northern part of the state would get baseball and softball. And that's just the way it works.
The line of demarcation there
exactly,
on the sports.
No, it's very interesting, and we talked about it a little this morning when we were doing coffee break, how you're intrigued to see if the sports with bats, the softball and the baseball teams from the FCIAC can find a way to last longer in that state tournament. I don't know if there's a team right now that's ready to go out and win a state championship just yet, but obviously look at what the Ridgefield hockey team just did. We can't rule anything off the table before the season starts. But who is going to be the group that really is able to come together and find their way towards the quarterfinals, semifinals, maybe make a run to the championship?
Well, it's the teams that we've been mentioning. I think it's the we first of all you kind of have to take St. Joe's out of the mix because they are in Class M. They're the only softball team, I believe, out of the FCIAC in Class M. Even schools like Wilton, they're a Class L in most sports. They play double L in softball. But I think it's the four teams that we've been talking about. It's the Stanford, West Hill. I would put Trumbull up in there, and then Ward. That would probably be the teams other than St. Joe's out of the FCIAC.
Well, let's stay on the diamond, and we'll go over to the baseball side of things here. Last year's champion, the Darien Blue Wave, their first championship since 1981. This is also worth mentioning, too. You look back at last spring season, Darien won 6 of the 11 FCIAC-sanctioned sporting championships, which is unheard of and, quite frankly, ridiculous. Baseball was a huge treat for the Blue Wave. They had finished first in the conference 2 years in a row. They bring back some key prospects. Eric, is Darien the team to beat again, or are we looking at another champion for the first time in a long time?
I think this is going to be a very interesting season in FCIAC baseball. Darien only won the FCIAC by 2 games. It was a very close, very tight baseball tournament. It was really open to anyone, and it was almost surprising that we saw the top seeded Darien go on and win, because it seemed like, I think it was a good 4 or 5 years in a row where the top seed did not win the baseball tournament. It's such a crapshoot, even more than basketball, I think, when you get to the FCIAC baseball tournament. We go down the standings from last year. Darien was 13-3. Then you had Greenwich and Trumbull 11-5, and then you had 4 teams at 10-6: Norwalk, St. Joe's, Ward, and Ridgefield. So that's a large cluster near the top. Then you had Danbury and Staples were battling to the final day of the season. We saw a great Danbury-Darien game last year that put Danbury in the playoffs, and Danbury beat Darien in that game. So that was really a fascinating game to watch. So I think this is going to be yet again a wide open field. And I do not put Darien. I'm not giving them anything. Not unlike St. Joe's, where I kind of automatically put them as the favorite. I'm not putting Darien as far and away favorite. Got to be one of the teams definitely in the conversation, but in no way are they going to dominate this league.
It's been one of the toughest sports, at least in the spring, to repeat in. We've had a different champion in every season since 2010. We've only seen 2 repeat champions since 1999. So let me ask you this, with Darien winning last year, Wilton winning for the first time in 20 years the year before that, Ward winning their first championship for the first time ever in 2014, Don, who is the surprise team we should keep an eye on this year that could be taking home the title?
Well, I wouldn't call it a surprise, but I haven't heard them mentioned yet, and I'm going to go with Trumbull. They played tough in the FCAC tournament. They lost that heartbreaker to Darien. They wanted another crack at the wave. They got it in the state playoffs where they beat Darien in the second round. They then ran into a very hot Simsbury team and lost a 1-0 decision. But I think if I had to pick a team that's not really being talked about at the top of the league that could really surprise people, I'm going to go with the Eagles.
And you remember, Kevin, we spoke with Mike King, athletic director for Trumbull, during the girls basketball championship, and he was very optimistic about that Trumbull Eagles baseball team as well.
Yeah, I mean, Don, you're right. I think they're a team. Trumbull is certainly a team that can make some noise. Daniel Wachelski, I mean, we saw him on the hardwood. This guy can also bring it on the diamond, so keep an eye out for him. But for me, I kind of like Danbury going this year as my dark horse. You know, we saw them last year. Eric just mentioned that great game against Staples last year. They needed to win that game in order to get into the playoffs, and they have the pitching staff. And this is a hard-nosed team, blue-collared, that can really just get work done, and they can, you know, grind out some wins. I really like Danbury this year. I don't necessarily say they're going to be in first place, but look out for them as a team again who's going to just get into the playoffs and maybe make some noise.
You took the words right out of my mouth. But and also going back to Trumbull, I definitely agree with you, Kevin. That was going to be my pick. Danbury is my pick to kind of make some noise in baseball this year. But you know, Don, let's not forget. Trumbull, you know, took Darien to extra innings in that championship game last year, and they've actually been in the FCAC championship, baseball championship, 4 of the last 5 years. So they're by no means a dark horse and a team that we should absolutely look out for because they find a way to get there. They've only won it. They only won it in 2012, but you know they're a team that will always be in the conversation.
And obviously another team to keep an eye on, the Staples Wreckers. They were that last team to win 2 in a row. They've won 3 championships since 2008. Staples always so good. A team for me that might be able to sneak in there from below the radar. Keep an eye on McMahon and New Canaan. I think those are 2 teams that have come into their own. They've got some veteran players right now and could make some noise this year, have a Cinderella-type run from a low seed in the tournament. Another thing, obviously, to keep an eye on, and you can't go without mention here, what kind of an impact, effect, you know, kind of ripple effect specifically are we going to see from the return of Giacomo Brancato now, who left the Fairfield Ward basketball team. He'll now be returning to the baseball team. How is he received by his teammates, Don?
I think they receive him pretty well. I mean, I think you know it's for the most part it's going to be a different group of kids, you know, rather than the basketball team. And also the thing is with baseball is I think you know we've seen it. You know, if you're a Yankee fan, you saw it in the late '70s. You know, baseball more than any other sport, in my opinion, relies less on chemistry and guys liking each other and things like that. So while I don't expect his teammates to really have a hard time with Giacomo coming back, I think that even if a few kids maybe aren't especially happy about it, it tends to be minimized just because of the very nature of the way baseball is.
Eric, let me ask you this: how long does this stay a story, the return of Brancato?
I really don't think very long. I mean, unless something kind of happens very early on, I think this is a team that's just going to probably go about its business. They were a 10-6 team last year. I think that's a little disappointing for them. This is a loaded Fairfield Ward team, and I think anything other than a top 3 finish in the FCAC is going to be a disappointment for them. I mean, this is a team that you really got to watch out for, and don't forget that Ward did get to the state final. Brancato hit that game-tying home run. They ended up losing in extra innings there in the state championship. He certainly has a flair for the dramatic, and it will be interesting to see. I think I got to agree that I don't think it plays as much of a factor on the baseball diamond as it would on the hardwood.
Remember too, Ward was very close to knocking off Trumbull in the semifinals of that FCAC championship. So another team to keep an eye on. Again, it's arguably the most wide open sport in the spring season, and it will certainly be a lot of fun as we get ready for both softball and baseball to start. We're going to take one more break on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, John Kovach is going to join us, and we're going to look at the lacrosse side of the spring bracket along with some of the other sports coming up next on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
Want a new experience in car buying? No aggravation, no confrontation, just answers to all your questions. Scap Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Car buying the way you want it to be. With one of the largest selections of new 2- and 4-door Jeep Wranglers available, we are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Located in Fairfield, Connecticut, we're easy to get to. Just 2.5 miles off the Merritt Parkway, exit 44 via Route 58 South. Save thousands right now during the spring clearance event and Ram Truck Month, now through March 31st.
It's the In-Sports Athletic Functional Movement Assessment Program.
A program that uses a camera, the same camera that you use with an Xbox video game.
What it involves is 3 phases. One is the initial test, which will give you a very objective and lengthy assessment of how you are moving and where there may be imbalances.
Once test gets the results from the assessment, we'll develop a customized program for the individual.
The objective really to try to get as many young athletes through this program as possible.
Have a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Basketball, hockey, skiing, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
At the Milford Bank, we offer an extensive selection of lending products and services to meet virtually any need. Submit your application online in our Mortgage Web Center. Start to finish, you can apply for a loan in as little as 10 minutes. Our knowledgeable and helpful staff are available to meet with you at your convenience. To learn more about what we can do for you, stop by one of our Milford Bank offices or visit us at milfordbank.com. The Milford Bank, always there. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
We told Dad he could have his office back if he sold 150 cars last month.
Deal's a deal.
Well, Dad, you did it. You get your office back.
Forget it. I'm having too much fun down here. My new goal, 160 cars. Wow. Folks, if you ever wanted a great price on a new Nissan, now is the time.
Right now, lease a 2017 Altima 2.5S for only $99 a month.
Isn't it time you got Millerized?
I'm John Kovac. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
Back on the HAN network, we welcome in John Kovac now as we look into the upcoming lacrosse season. And right away, John, you just made a great point. Darien is the number 3 team in the nation for the preseason rankings. They're actually number 2. A couple of out-of-state schools have already begun, so they've dropped down 1. But you have concerns about this Darien team.
I don't know about concerns, but I have questions because you look at the drop-off that you saw in ice hockey and how much experience they lost. Is that going to carry over? What did they lose in lacrosse? And you're the man until somebody knocks you off the top of the mountain. But I've got questions as to what's going to be there in the spring.
I will give you they lose a lot. They lose the arguably greatest class in the history of Connecticut sports when you look at everything they accomplished. Replacing Mark Ivanchek is going to be very tough. Replacing a Colin Minikis up front, going to be very, very tough. But positives to look at. A couple of players from that back line are back. A couple of your top scorers are back. You win games big enough that you're able to get younger players experience. The most important part of it all, Ryan Cornell is back to start his 3rd season as the goalie. And Kevin, for me last year, I thought Drew Morris was believed to be the best goalie in the state, bar none. He's going to Maryland next year, and Morris is a tremendous talent. When it got down to it in the FCIAC championship, I stand by Ryan Cornell is the best goalie in the FCIAC conference, and that is until someone is able to prove otherwise.
I fully agree. I was so impressed with how he played last year. Cornell was brilliant, especially leading up to the FCIAC championship game against New Canaan. What a performance he put on, not only in that game, but for the rest of the season. he was so good, and it's if you're Darien, you have to be thrilled that you get him back for his senior year. I know he'd love to go out and again repeat as FCIAC champs.
And Eric, I'll throw this at you now because we're talking a little about New Canaan here. What do the Rams have to do to get over the hump? Because quite frankly, it seems like Jeff Braymeyer is in Coach Chip Buzzio's head and knows that he can beat him and is showing no signs of letting up.
Yeah, there is just stacks upon stacks of intangibles that Darien currently has over their arch rival. It's going to take something very dramatic for New Canaan to come on top of Darien because, I mean, we look at these teams, yes, they boys and girls. We'll get to the girls in a bit here, but, yes, they lost some big names, but, man, it is hard to figure out a way that this Darien team is going to lose. Again, another year, and it's the Blue Wave yet again that are just going to be scaring everyone in this entire state.
They are, and give New Canaan some credit here. They won the Class M state championship last season, lost 9-5 in the FCIAC championship, but you bring back Ryan O'Connell, who's a future UNC Tar Heel, arguably one of the top players in the nation, let alone the state. Having Drew Morris in goal helps out a lot. James Cravato and James Frere are a couple players back on the defensive side. Chase Strupp's going to be very good. Jackson Apelt, a future Virginia Cavalier up front. The talent is certainly there, John, but what is it now that separates Darien from a New Canaan, the way lacrosse is being played?
Well, I think, as you said to start this conversation, it was the greatest class in the history of Connecticut high school sports, for one. And what I want to see is New Canaan finally had some success against Darien this winter. You finally saw they got through that. How much of that carries over? How much? You know what? We can beat them. We beat them in whatever,
and that's a great point because we talked a lot about it during championship weekend last year when we had the girls-boys doubleheader. At what point in time does just this become a mental block? They are in your own head and have got that mental advantage.
And that happens, and you see that, and you can't explain it as a player, as a coach, as a fan, as a media member. You just get these teams that have your number, and maybe you tighten up, and I don't like to use the word choke, but choke it away, or you approach it just too emotionally to do your job, or you get this close to the win, and you're, wow, we're really going to do it this time. And then you quit focusing on what you're doing and focus on the fact that maybe you're finally going to get there, and that's when mistakes happen.
Darien, number 3 in the preseason for the nation. New Canaan sits at 23. They both got some interesting out-of-conference, out-of-state games coming up early in the schedule. We'll have Darien Yorktown to start the season on April 1st from the Darien Blue Wave Stadium. Want to talk about Staples for a second, John. They qualified for their first ever FCX semifinal appearance last year. Clearly a program on the rise. They bring back a good chunk of last year's team. How do the Wreckers continue to build this program up moving forward?
I think they just keep doing what they're doing, and I say that coming from a different viewpoint than a lot of people, than true lacrosse people. I say that coming from being when I was a football coach, and the talk surrounding Staples is lacrosse is gaining a foothold there, and you're seeing a lot more young Westport athletes doing lacrosse and it carrying up to Staples. And I think you're seeing that on the lacrosse field. Are you seeing it in other sports as well? But that's the talk, is that Staples has finally found, or lacrosse has finally found that foothold in Westport that nobody really understood why it wasn't there.
And could potentially Staples be the next school to hold the crown in both lacrosse and baseball? We saw Darien do it last year. That a rare feat, almost as rare as holding basketball and hockey, as we saw this winter by Ridgefield. Kevin, if there were a team from the middle of the pack, one of those 2, 3, 4, 5 seeds heading into the tournament that could make an impact, where do Greenwich, Ridgefield, and Wilton all fit in right now?
Right now, obviously, Darien, New Canaan 1 and 2. I sit Ridgefield at 3, and I sit Greenwich at 4. And if you look at the schedule, we actually have Ridgefield at Greenwich that first, I think it's the second week. And that's going to be at Cardinal Stadium, and that's going to be a fantastic game just to kind of get a preview of what to expect. I mean, if you look at Ridgefield, they have Drew Fowler back. They got Greg Gatto back. They also have Will Carpenter, Chris Costello. These are guys who really know how to score here for the Richfield Tigers. Yes, they maybe lost a big senior class, but these are seniors that come back into this year with a lot of leadership, and this is a Richfield program that has had success over the years, just like Darien New Canaan has had. So I don't expect to see Richfield to have a fall off at all. Greenwich is definitely going to be competitive. Wilton, always a strong lacrosse program. So I expect to see those three teams really in the mix and to give Darien New Canaan a run for their money.
And Eric, you remember we saw the 6th seed Wilton take on New Canaan in the first round of the FCAC tournament last year, and the Warriors have got to be believers based on the performance they put forward in that game.
Yeah, and you kind of look at the whole middle pack. You wonder if anyone can differentiate themselves from the rest. I mean, you go back to the standings from last year. After the undefeated Darien, you had Richfield, New Canaan, Staples, and Greenwich all sitting at 9-2 in the FCAC. They all had different overall records, kind of differentiated themselves that way, but very, very tight. And then Wilton right there at 8-3, right below. Wilton's been there. Wilton has had some elite seasons and has been in the conversation, and they've had some great battles with Darien. It remains to be seen. We'll have to see what kind of chips that they are playing with this year. But there's certainly a team that's in the conversation. But you wonder if it's just all for naught. It's just all in the wash there. That where everybody falls underneath Darien. You wonder, can anyone end their undefeated streak? Can anyone crack that Darien streak?
They've gone undefeated 2 of the last 3 seasons, and you're right. Of course, Wilton, the original power in the FCAC, that first great lacrosse program. On the girls' side, a lot of the same we saw last season. Darien winning their 5th straight FCAC championship in lacrosse. It was a 12-11 comeback win in overtime over New Canaan. And I think the girls' bracket is one of the more predictable ones we're going to see in the spring season. I expect by the end of the day you're looking at Darien and New Canaan again. Maybe Wilton sneaks in there. But you can ask yourself the same question: what does Coach Kristen Woods have to do to overcome the edge that Coach Lisa Lindley has with the Blue Wave, John?
You look down the list of FCAC girls lacrosse champions, and it reminds me, you just brought up Wilton being the original boys' power. It is just like the late 80s with boys lacrosse right now. It's 2 powers, and every now and then a third sneaks in. Used to be with the boys, Wilton, New Canaan, Darien occasionally snuck its way in. With the girls, it's Darien, New Canaan, and every now and then a Wilton. Greenwich sneaks in. It's all about feeder programs, and it's all about a culture of winning, and they have that in Darien right now. It takes time to build that culture someplace else.
You're not going to find 2 better winners and being able to set a culture like that than Lisa Lindley and Kevin and Jeff Braymeyer. But Kevin, your thoughts on where we stand heading into the girls' LAC season?
I think it's going to be a very competitive girls' season. You go back to that FCAC final, boy, was that a fun game to be a part of. Just to witness that great comeback by Darien. It was high intensity. They win on the game winner in overtime. And I think for me, the one player that needs to, again, show up for Darien is Shudell, the goalie. I think she played outstanding last year for the Blue Wave, coming up with some unbelievable saves. She needs to do that again in order for the Blue Wave to go back to the FCAC final.
Eric, we're looking at a year where both Darien and New Canaan are losing some of their most storied players ever, graduating 2 big classes with a lot of experience. Who do you give the edge to rebuilding-wise moving forward this season?
Of those 2, I mean, definitely Darien. But if we're talking about teams that are rebuilding and I think could strike, I'm looking at the Wilton Warriors. And they've been a younger team after they had a really great run there. They had a couple state runs, and they were in the FCAC championship. But looking at their roster and the number of seniors that are on this team this year, I think you got a core that's been there a while now, and this is, I think, a Warrior team that I think could be poised to make some noise this year. But again, just like the boys, you got to prove it and beat the Darien Blue Wave, and it's just going to be so hard to do that.
The only other sport where you've really got a predictability to how it could finish would be boys track and field. Obviously, in boys golf, Darien winning last year. That's their first title since '98. Golf can be a toss-up. We're going to have a golf match later on this season, which will be a lot of fun. Girls golf, Staples. You go down. Tennis was Staples. You could argue that that's a predictable situation.
They've been
that
on
they've
the
always
map
been
for
good.
30 years.
But you've got teams like Greenwich and Buchanan going 14-1 last year. Darien not far behind Wilton. So there's some balance at the top there. Staples finds a way to get it done. Volleyball, Darien winning, but track and field. Danbury winning their third straight, and all of those have come against Ridgefield. Girls track and field is Danbury again. We saw them dominate in the winter. How much confidence or how heavy of a favorite should Danbury be heading into the outdoor track and field season?
I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think again, boys and girls, after doing what they did this winter, again, why not? They're proven that this in the fall and the winter that this is a dangerous team, and I think Ridgefield's right there. They're missing one or two pieces. Danbury has every piece they need, boys and girls on both sides. They're just so strong. And John, I'll ask you what can Ridgefield do?
It's a matter of developing the athlete. It's a matter of getting some points. Somebody in an unexpected spot maybe finishes a couple of spots higher, maybe a couple of field events. We didn't see all of the field events that you'll see outdoors or indoors that you're going to see outdoors. Could Ridgefield have an edge there? We won't know till the season starts.
Now, Eric, you remember Danbury was a big winner when we were at the Indoor Track Championships. Do they maybe have to worry a little bit about that margin heading outdoors with extra events in some of the throwing and field events? You've got different distance events that come into play now. Do the Hatters maybe get hawked down in a year where you've got tremendous athletes spread out around the conference, and you could argue we're looking at a much more balanced level of a playing field?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you got to, look out for the Staples Wreckers. I think they kind of bring a few more wrinkles into this in the spring season, when you look back at the cross-country season. They're a team that you always got to look out for, and obviously Ridgefield. But it's Danbury's to lose. It really is. Even with all those extra events, I really think that, John, I know you want to say it, about beating the man. Come on, let's have you say it.
Well, to be the man, you've got to beat the man.
I can't argue it. Final thoughts rolling around the table here. Eric, what are you most looking forward to in the spring season?
Warm weather. Baseball. And
Don't hold
just the
your breath.
countdown to Harbor Yard. It's always a blast going to Harbor Yard and covering those games. And everyone feels it when they're there. From the kids to the fans to us in the booth. You're in this real stadium, and that's a really special feeling. And that's one of my highlights of the high school sporting year every year.
The road to Harbor Yard and the march to McMahon. John, looking forward to the most.
Probably Harbor Yard is up there, but just getting outside, there's something about being outside. I always found that the winter season when I was a sports writer was the longest season because everything's at night. You never see the sun. And then spring was just like, all right, this is why I did this. And it's that getting outside. It's that first crack at a bat, that first good drive. All that stuff.
I was afraid no one was going to mention golf, and it was going to be very
Oh,
upsetting
that was
to me.
coming.
I promise I won't cut you off. What are you looking forward to most this spring?
Twice in a week, Ugh. But no, one thing I'm looking forward to the most, yes, warm weather, baseball, Harbor Yard. It's boys volleyball, Darien and Ridgefield. These two teams go at it every season. It's the rivalry between them and boys volleyball is really amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing how these two teams can bounce back after a great year from the both of them. Can these two find each other in the FCX final again?
I'm looking forward to the FCX Spring Tour. It starts next week, and we're going to hit all 17 schools, meet with each team's captain. Going to be a lot of fun. Opening day for the HA Network is April 1st, Saturday at 2 o'clock from Darien. Yorktown coming up to take on the number 3 team in the country, the Blue Wave. Excited to get out on the links too. Have David Faraday over here walking around the course with some of these grouping. For Eric Gendron, John Kovacs, Kevin Coleman, I'm Frank Granito. We'll see you in a couple weeks back here on Nutmeg Sports. We'll catch you on the tour before that. As always, on the HAN Network.